This week, a new study argued that sex education needs to be brought up to date. It said we need to move away from condoms and cucumbers to more realistic portrayals, because in the age of readily accessible porn, we need to keep up with what young people are seeing and doing. I agree, our current sex education needs modernizing, but I'm sorry, bringing live action visuals into the classroom in the most quote-unquote tasteful way is not the answer. Sex and how to perform it is not the issue. It is our emotions and how we behave towards each other when it comes to sex and relationships that is the problem. What we actually need is more honest conversations in schools about the minefield of sex and relationships. Yes, human beings are attracted to each other, so let's talk about how to address those feelings and urges appropriately. Sounds basic, but it's something we have yet to try. It isn't visual images that our young people need help with. It's expressing themselves properly. That is the problem. So sorry, Elvis, I'm saying a little more conversation and a little less action, please.
I'm really glad, actually, that my kids are all over 30 and I'm not having to bring up kids today, because I do think the internet and how many are seeing porn on the internet actually changes what they are and changes what they're about. Yeah. And I think we'd all agree with what you're saying. Whether you should show them, I don't know. What interested me when I was looking at these figures, more boys than girls watch pornography on the internet. Well, there's a surprise. You know, 59% compared to 25%. A greater proportion of boys want to emulate pornography than girls. Substantial minority of older children wanted to try things out that they'd seen in pornography. It's one of the great challenges, I suspect, of our generation, and I'm not sure we have any idea how to deal with it, really.
And I think,
that's why I think people are coming up with all sorts of ideas, because this is clearly a change from when my kids were in their teens.
Completely, and that's why we need to address it seriously. And I think the repercussions could be serious. You know, if you look at what's going on in terms of sexual harassment, it could actually get worse with the next generation if we don't deal with this. Carol?
You know, teens have access to porn now in a way that we never did. And I just think it's important that what has to be taught in schools, I think, is the difference between a normal sexual relationship and porn, because as you just said there, kids are likely to act out what they see, and that will become their norm. And the thing that worries me too is sexual imagery. It's everywhere. So boys are still expected to be this macho, dominant, strong thing. Girls are supposed to be these to present themselves as sexually available and there to please boys. That worries me, and I think that has to be addressed.
Which is why we need to look at boundaries and actually start having those sorts of conversations, as opposed to showing
he was on
porn in school.
What's she called?
Oodala.
I mean, she had a massive joke-sized vagina on set, didn't she?
Yes, I hasten to add that was a prop, by the way.
I mean, but the one thing she said, people have to go home and touch themselves. And I'm thinking...
Well, what happened was teenage girls, so she does a session and
take mirrors
teenage
home.
Girls are obliged to take a mirror home and explore their areas.
But that's not something I have a problem with.
I think I do if they're young, depending on the age.
Teenage boys are meant to take home a shaving cream and a razor and continually shave their private parts, so then they experience what it is when women are meant to, whatever. So let's be careful how we tread, because this goes out in the afternoon, so we're careful where we go with this. So, coming back to what she said, my problem there was she also believed in things as saying what a possible pornographic experience might be, and also talking about any sexual experiences they might have had. Now, and this was 16, by the way, so there's nothing illegal, we must stress that. But, if I'm the one boy in class who hasn't yet, or I'm the one girl in class who hasn't yet,
the pressure.
And I'm going to put, and all the boys are saying, my girlfriend did this with me, and I did, and I say, I haven't done anything. Can you imagine the afternoon I've got ahead of me?
This is why I'm saying we need to look at the emotional side, because then young people who haven't had the sexual experiences yet actually can feel confident and safe to express that. So we need to do...
Do you agree with kind of 5, 6, 7-year-olds being taught in schools? Because I don't.
It depends on what you're teaching them. Afua?
Nobody's suggesting showing porn to 5, 6, 7-year-olds.
No, not porn. No, I mean
and
actually,
the relationship education that's given to children that age is about knowing that their bodies are private and other people have no right to touch them, and that healthy relationships and boundaries. So I personally am glad that my daughter's learning that, because I think that children need to be equipped to know that there are boundaries and that they have a right not for people not to touch them a certain way.
Aren't you part of teaching her that?
Yes, of course, of course.
Is that not your job? Why don't you learn that in the classroom?
Yes, but it's too important, I think, to leave to parents. It's really fundamental.
But you still need experts.
I don't think it's an either-or. And I agree with you, June, but I don't agree with you on the porn issue.
Okay.
Because I have listened to people who advocate showing porn in schools, and it's not let's just get a sex scene and blast it. Kids. What it is saying the majority of children by the time of 15 have seen porn. And actually, one of the things I'd like to mention that I find really problematic is that more of them have seen porn by accident than were looking for it, which is absolutely horrific, that our children who aren't seeking it at all are being bombarded with this kind of explicit material, which I think it's horrifying to think that kids are finding this when they don't want to find it. That's what's going on. People who talk about showing porn in schools say, look, our kids are being exposed to this. How can we find a way of teaching them the context? Because a lot of them, when they see porn, they think it's real. They think it's actually what you do in relationships. They think it's a real reflection of gender roles and sexual encounters.
But then why can't you have the conversation without needing to show the imagery? Because actually they're watching it themselves.
It's probably like, I don't know what your sex education at school was, but it was a conversation without the imagery, which was this incredibly abstract lesson on these body parts that we couldn't see.
My point, Afro, is right now our conversations are based on the physical. And I think sex is such an emotional thing too, and that's not even explored.
I completely agree, but it's not either or.
If 59% of boys have seen porn before the age of 16.
So we don't need to show them anymore then, do we?
Or is there a way of showing it in a way that's subtle but also educational? And, you know, I don't know, I'm not certain you're right, because I think we're dealing with something that we just didn't know about, really.
The porn debate in school, it's like analysing literature. It's showing them something and then creating a discussion where you pick it apart and you analyse it. And I think that is a tool that children need. I mean, obviously, no one wants to expose children who've managed to somehow avoid having seen it to this point, which is getting harder, to porn for the first time. But I think there is a way it could be done. I think it's understanding it's not about...
Don't you think you get into dodgy territory when you're dealing with religious parents?
Yeah,
I just think, you know, I just think...
It's dangerous. Well, if you show them and say it's bad, then they're going to want to do it. You know, forbid kids something, they're going to want to do it.
Can I show you all a clip? So I have a friend called Cindy Gallup.
I've
got a clip for you. The pledge is coming on at midnight tonight. I've got a friend, Cindy Gallup, who actually, this is her campaign. Let's have a look at her.
So, in an era where hardcore porn is more freely and widely available on the internet than ever before, and where kids are therefore able to access it at a younger and younger age than ever before, there is an entire generation growing up that believes that what you see in hardcore pornography is the way that you have sex.
So Cindy is amazing. So her campaign is called Make Love Not Porn. And the reason she set it up is because she only dates younger men. And so she found that a lot of the younger men that she was getting intimate with wanted very strange sex. So she was like, what's going on? And that's what made her decide to take on this issue. And she's been fantastic in actually... Yeah, exactly.
There's a study in Sweden, it will be in Sweden, wouldn't it? But there's a study in Sweden that suggests exactly the same thing. But not all the studies do, because there's another one here in Switzerland, which doesn't show that. So, but clearly something has changed in a comparatively short period of time. And someone has got to work out what you do with it or about it.
For the Orthodox Jewish family, for the very strict Muslim family,
for the Christian family.
Are we going to mandate them?
No, you can't.
Well, we've had a situation where, until recently, where religious or other parents who don't agree can exempt their children. I mean, there are people who run sex education, I know someone who runs Muslim sex education classes for children that it's kind of appropriate in line with their faith and their values. And I think there is a growing understanding in a lot of religious communities that while they still might have quite conservative ideas about sex and relationships, they still want their kids to be equipped to navigate a society where children are being exposed to this stuff. And I think that nobody can opt out of that. If you live in this society, this material is out there. And I personally would like young people to be more resilient, because there's a gender dynamic as well. One thing I found really upsetting talking to a bunch of school kids about porn was some of them had seen the same violent porn, and the boys thought it was funny and the girls thought it was traumatic. And that difference in perception is really worrying.
But the group of boys have just been toughing it out there. I bet if you got them
one-on-one.
Because one guy can, if everybody else is ha-ha-ha, that's a bloke male.
But you are going to have to tackle the parents first, aren't you?
Yeah.
There is no way you can suddenly put all this into a classroom situation without explaining to the parents, all the parents, why you're doing it.
I would think you need to bring parents along with you. I mean, that's why there's been this very contentious debate about whether you make it compulsory. But the argument has been won because there are so many reasons why children benefit from having good quality, appropriate sex education.
Nobody disagrees with that, but I'm sorry, wouldn't want my children watching porn in school.